It's true, bamboo bedding is dreamy to sleep on. That's why Quince aptly named their Bamboo Dream Quilt Set. Coming in 12 colors, you're absolutely going to love this quilt and 2 shams set. Starting at the softest of pinks and going all the way to a dark navy. It's going to be perfect for anyone's room. Your own, your guest rooms, your kids' rooms, maybe even back to the dorm bedding. Quince has everything you need to elevate your space, from bedding to soft organic towels, airy curtains, and premium kitchen tools designed for everyday use. And of course, as you know, Quince has gorgeous cashmere and other wardrobe essentials. And the best part, Quince's products are half the cost of similar brands. They partner with top artisans and cut out the cost of the middleman, passing the savings on to us. Thank you, Quince. And they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices, so you can feel good about your purchases from Quince. Elevate your space with home essentials from Quince. Go to quince.com/DTT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/DTT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/DTT.
Come on in and sit a spell. Hi, I'm Anita Joyce here with Kelly Wilkness, and this is Decorating Tips and Tricks. Today we're talking about 10 living room essentials, and these are things to think about if you're decorating your room. And so if you just had 10 things to think about, these are the 10 that we would choose.
If you were limited to 10 items, these would be your desert island living room items. Anita and I thought it would be really fun to do sort of a loose series. We'll come back to this type of topic maybe every month or so. 10 fill-in-the-blank essentials for the various rooms. And I wouldn't necessarily take the 10 essentials as that fact that you have to have every single one of them. And you know us, we kind of overtalk maybe. So we might have even more than 10, but you don't have to have every single essential in there. But we just want you to think through as to whether or not the particular essential would work in your room.
Well said, Kelly. Create an environment that suits you. And when I think about this, I think about kind of an overarching, I don't want to use the word theme because we're not talking about a jungle room or a African safari. I don't mean that, but just kind of like, what do you want the room to evoke? Like what emotions? And so with my old city house, I wanted a calm, serene elegance. So I wanted some high-end finishes, but I wanted a lot of neutrals and a very peaceful environment. Whereas now I'm in the country and I'm thinking, not that I didn't like what I did before, but I want a new approach. So now I'm thinking more fun, lively, cheery, colorful. And so I'm really going a very different direction there. And I'm hoping to get some color on the walls as well, just for a new approach. So, but that is something you need to think about. What is your overarching theme? Because if you don't have that in mind, it's going to end up feeling kind of maybe schizophrenic in a way. I mean, you really want it to have that cohesive feel. And I think that's the beginning of how you get there.
I like that you kicked it off with something that was a little bit more amorphous, not a specific item, because that is the best way to start with a room. What do you want it to feel like? As you mentioned the word evoke, what emotions do you want to evoke when someone comes into this room? And also, I would add to that, who's living there? How are you going to live in this space? So be realistic about it and play to that, play to reality, because you don't want to create a room that's just so beautiful that it feels like it should be roped off. And you don't want to create a room that is maybe not as sophisticated as you are at this point in your life. So you want to find that sweet spot where the room is not only going to be visually appealing, it's going to make you feel good when you're in it, but also it's going to support your lifestyle. So that's going to be an essential for really almost any room we talk about, but particularly rooms like a living room where it can go a myriad of ways. A kitchen is there for a lot of utilitarian purposes. A bathroom, same deal. We don't have to go too deep into that, Anita. You know what I'm talking about. But a living room can be very different depending on the geography. The architecture of the house may even play a part. certainly the people who are living there, the ages of the people living there, the pets that may or may not live there. So all those things you need to consider when you're approaching this type of room.
But it's what you said, what you say all the time. Keep in mind the type of house that you have. Don't come up with an interior feeling of a beach, if you live in the mountains, so really kind of keep in your environment in mind. And that's really kind of what I was getting at too, is that my environment's very different here. The house is much more casual, and so it's going to be reflected in what I do inside. So do think about where you live and what kind of house you live in when you're coming up with this overarching look or theme that you want.
As far as where the living room is placed, in most homes, the living room, particularly if it's a formal type living room and maybe you have family room somewhere else, it's usually right in front. Whereas you may come in through your garage or your back door or something like that, it is front and center when guests come and they use the front door of your home normally. So you want to set the tone with this room for the whole feel of your house. So I'm going to start out with create conversational seating arrangements. Don't just have one sofa, or even if it's a sectional or a chaise, don't have it just up against the wall and that's it. You want to create places where even if you're not entertaining all the time, people could sit across from each other, or a chair off to the side and a sofa where people could lean in and have a conversation, where you could entertain if you wanted to, or even you could just sit there with another family member, or even by yourself, but it doesn't feel like you're sitting there waiting for a bus.
Right? Doesn't sound good. My living room feels like a bus stop.
Right, exactly. You just need a sign over you, and you're sitting there just waiting because it's just a straight sofa, and you're sitting there looking into the vast abyss. So don't do that.
No, that's a good point. Another thing to think about is using some natural materials. And I think this works with most design styles, unless it's just really, really a very sleek, modern look. I think natural materials work with most styles. And what do we mean by natural? We mean just one or more of these type of things. Some wood floors, wood beams, maybe a wicker basket, plants, a sisal rug, or maybe it's a carved wood bowl, or maybe a piece of pottery. Anything kind of that is natural. And it really does add a sense of calm and connectedness to the room.
Back to where you're having the furniture and whatnot, have a place, a little spot even, for someone to put a drink, a book, a mug at every seat. So this can be a coffee table, maybe leaning in a little bit, side tables if you can get them in there if there's room, and those little martini tables. So you don't have to be serving martinis, but it's just one of those little tiny tables on a little pedestal, and it really only has a circle that's maybe 6 or so inches in diameter, where you can just put a glass or a mug. That would even do it. Or a stack of books that's sturdy. You don't want the mug sliding off because the book slipped, but something there that someone can feel comfortable, because this really adds a sense of welcome to the room. Something where you can place something down and you just feel like a sense of comfort, relaxation in the space.
That's so true. And actually, we did have that situation in our living room where we really didn't have room for kind of the fuller sized end tables that we had at our other house. Because of the configuration, we really didn't have room for end tables. So I ended up just putting some folding trays. I mean, they're really nice brass ones. Because I didn't want it to feel cluttered, I didn't put any lamps on them, but we did put them there so you could put a book down or put your phone down or a drink. I think it does really make a difference from a practical standpoint of really having a place to put something.
I would love to know where you got those, the brass folding. Did you keep them out all the time, or did you fold them up when you weren't in the room or you weren't having guests?
Oh, well, I say they're folding. They really don't fold up. I mean, they look like they fold, but they don't.
Okay.
I had gotten them from soft surroundings, and, they don't carry the furniture anymore.
Right.
But they're really beautiful. We had used them in our living room a long time ago in the old house. But yeah, they ended up being very handy to have. here.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I bet. I have seen that type of thing that is made out of rattan too. And
Hmm.
you don't want a TV tray unless you're super
Right.
mid-century and maybe you get like a super mod TV tray that could somehow work in with your decor, but you don't really want to have the sense of, that you're sitting there eating, like a Swanson dinner off a TV
Well, that's why
tray.
I was careful to describe them. These actually are a faux bamboo, but they're metal.
Yeah, beautiful. Another solution, if you have a situation like that where you're limited on space, but you want to have the flexibility, and when people are over, you want them to have the ability to put something down, is nesters. We love
Oh, true.
nesting tables. So it could be a whole coffee table that has nesting tables underneath it, or it could be a smaller side table that has the two other nesters inside of it so that you can move them around. I have that situation in my living room because, as I've mentioned numerous times before, it's like a bowling alley. It's narrow and long. There's limited space on either side of those brazier chairs. So I have a set of Florentine tables, and I just take the little baby one out, which is so great because it really is small. And I can move it around wherever somebody sits, they can have a little table next to them. So if you're in a situation where you don't have room for proper side tables, go with a nester or go with this type of faux pretend folding table that Anita had.
Well, it's interesting talking about these little tables. When we moved, we have so many little tables, and I thought, I'm going to have plenty. And I thought, where am I even going to put all of these? Well, do you know, I've used every single one of them. I kind of ran out because that's the beauty of these little tables. They slide in just anywhere, and you don't
Hmm.
need a lot of space for them. In fact, in one room, I was using them as nightstands. So
Yeah.
you really can't go wrong buying these. You can always tuck them in, and then if you move, they'll be great some other place. So I think it's such a great idea to have these. So another thing we ran into when we were moving is bookcases. So that's my next tip, is to have some bookcases or display shelves. So in our old house, we had built-ins. And so that is so wonderful if you have the built-ins. I hope you appreciate them and enjoy them. And yes, they can be a challenge at times to fill and make beautiful, but you don't really have to fill them. You just need to have a few things on them to look beautiful. But that is so wonderful to have a place to put some things, because you can put your overflow of books. You could put dishes in there. You can put a collection of something. So they're just so wonderful to have. So what, though, happens when you move into a house like we did, where there is no display space built in the living room? So what I did was I took an armoire that I was using that had, it already had shelves, but it had a mirror door, which, that's the old armoires. They hung their clothes in there, and then they had the mirror on the front. So when we moved, actually, I was inspired by a picture that you showed me.
Oh.
Do you remember? Oh boy, it was somewhere in the U.S. There was a
Hmm.
kitchen, and they had a bookcase, kind of an etagere, excuse me, not bookcase, an
Hmm.
etagere in the breakfast room, and it was filled with dishes. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, yeah, because I thought you would love the dishes. Yeah.
Well, that was my inspiration piece. When
Oh,
I saw
great.
that, I thought, okay, I need a piece like this. And of course, I couldn't find anything. And I thought, wait a minute.
I
This
have one.
reminds Wait a minute. This reminds me of my armoire. So when they moved it in, I said, when you move it, don't put the door back on.
Huh?
So we kept the door off. I have some Majolica in there. I have my old French dishes, my old French transferware dishes. There's just so many old dishes I have stacked in there. Maybe there's a large spode purple and white terrine. So it's just filled with all of some of my favorite dishes, and that is my display space. So even if you don't have a built-in, you can add a bookcase. You can add several bookcases, or I just have the one. But this adds so much to your room. I cannot tell you how much it added to my room. Now, somebody wanted a TV in that space, and I nixed that one. So, well, there are other places we have TVs. So
Yeah.
I didn't see why it had to be in this particular room.
Yeah.
In fact, there's another room where I said, you go for it. I don't care how big the TV is in this room. You just go as big as you want. So I felt like that was my concession. And really, come on, in today's world, just get your laptop out.
Yeah.
You don't need a TV in every room. So it added so much more than that black hole would have added with a TV there. And now, after dinner, when we want to go watch BritBox, we go upstairs and sit on the sofa up there. And we have just a cozy little nook, and it's a kind of a fun destination. So you know what? Maybe it's fun to have the TV in a different room, so you have an excuse to go and use that other room.
Having something for display or books, I think that is really a great one. Recently found an etagere for a client, and we were finding ones at Room and Board and other higher end places for like $1,200, 2,000 plus. And I said to my client, we don't have to spend a lot of money on this, particularly if we choose one that's metal, because it's going to be metal. As long as the reviews say the thing doesn't fall apart or it doesn't come in 8 million pieces with 12 different size Allen wrenches or something, as long as it's sort of solid, we can go really what would be considered low end on this, and it's still going to look good. Sure enough, Home Depot.
Oh, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
The thing was like $124, and it's 36 wide and it's 70 tall. And you could even get two of them and put them side by side. Well, I just went over the other day and I styled it for them. It looks fantastic. So we've got books, we've got places for taller things. My client actually has won an Emmy. And so I made sure that one of the shelves had enough room to give the Emmy a little room to breathe, but we stacked it on 3 big books.
Now, you needed like a spotlight on that thing, too.
We were playing with the can light in the ceiling, and we were sort of spotlight on it. It looks terrific.
I would, too.
You really do not have to spend a lot of money on something like that. And if you like those ideas, you can listen to our episodes. We have 2, what to splurge on and what not to splurge on.
Hey, we'll be right back with the rest of the show, but keep listening so we can continue bringing you DTT. I can't stop using dupe.com. This is an amazing website, service, best friend. I absolutely love it. So you find something that you really want and it's too expensive. It's a budget buster. Then you use dupe.com and you can find almost the exact thing or very similar products for much less. So I was crushing on this incredibly gorgeous coffee table. I had it in my mind. I had it in my Pinterest boards. I had it everywhere, but I just didn't have it in my house because it was too expensive. When I learned about dupe.com, that was the first product that I tested. And boy, did I find some amazing dupes. And I purchased one. So the original was almost $3,000. And Dupe showed me many choices, all the way down to under $200. Now, you may think something this extraordinary is hard to use, but it's so easy. Just type dupe.com/ before any product URL in your browser, and boom, it instantly finds you less expensive alternatives. They even have an app and a browser extension you can download. No account required, no sign up required. It's completely free. That's completely free free to use. Stop wasting your money on brand names and start saving with dupe.com today.
I forget whose turn it is because I've been talking so much.
It's yours.
Okay. A focal point. Now, a lot of living rooms are going to come with a built-in focal point. It might be the fireplace. It could be a bay window even. It could be a TV or a TV unit, entertainment unit sort of thing. But kind of figure out what is your focal point. And if you don't have one that's built in architecturally or one by necessity, if it's got to be where the television is, then you can create one. And I think in this particular room, it is a good idea to create a focal point. It helps you decide where to position the furniture. And you're getting back to my first living room essential, the conversational seating arrangement. You may decide then to set up your conversational seating arrangement flanking or around the particular focal point. Everybody that's listening is going to have a different type of living room, different shaped living room that's used for lots of different purposes. So you just have to go in there or think in your mind's eye, what would be the focal point of mine? And if you don't have one that pops to mind right away, then think about creating one. And you could create one in a lot of different ways. It could even be a beautiful piece of art. It's just something that really is sort of the standout in that particular space, and that's going to kind of inform your decision on the other things that you do in the space. Alternatively, if you feel like you have too many focal points, You got a TV on one side, you got a fireplace on the other side. Then you kind of have to choose which one is really going to be the standout.
Something is going to become the focal point, and you want it to be what you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you do want to think through, what is your focal point? What is the first thing that you notice when you walk in the room? And this is where the pictures come in handy too. If you don't know what the focal point of a room is, take a picture of the room and you'll see in the picture where your eye is drawn. And so maybe it is a gorgeous view out the window. Maybe it is the fireplace. Maybe it is a beautiful piece of artwork or a very unique chair. But kind of think it through. And I like to have one really unique or beautiful piece in every room. So I try to think about what's my focal point in every room. Where are people going to look? And maybe a surprise too. So that's kind of a nice thing to think about. And while we're thinking about focal points, I mean, my next point is to add artwork that speaks to you. We see this a lot where artwork is chosen because it's the right color or it's the right size, or, I mean, it would just happen to be there, I guess.
That sad clown painting is just here. We're going with it.
Really think about the artwork. You don't want to be looking at something that's just space filler. Make sure this is something that speaks to you. Honestly, it's a wasted opportunity if you just bought it because it's the right size or the right color. You're going to be looking at this. Your guests are going to be looking at this. Why not spend a little extra time, maybe a little extra money, and find something that really speaks to you? A piece that every time you look at it, you think, this is so beautiful. I have 2 botanical prints that honestly I found very inexpensively, and they're large and they're kind of blue and white, and they kind of have like a taupey kind of color in them. There's something about them that just speaks to me, and I love those pieces, and I just love looking at them. So when you have a piece like that on the wall, it's just going to make you happy. So if you look at the artwork and it doesn't make you immediately smile, keep moving. Keep moving. Find something else. Look on Etsy. We've talked about this. I'll link. We have an episode on how to find artwork that you'll love, that's reasonably priced. But certainly Etsy's a great place you can just find anything there and usually order it in the exact size that you want. And you're going to save a lot of money over buying it at some brands that we won't speak about. But so I think that's very important.
The brands that are unspoken.
Well, I don't want to bash anybody.
I'm so curious now. Something antique or something with the mark of the maker. So handmade or hand painted, I think it's so important. So that could be a piece of art, a canvas, or something on paper. It could be an antique chest. It's just going to add gravitas to your room. So similar to when Anita was talking about using some natural materials, and that could be even linens, a nubby linen, or it could be wood or something like that. This is kind of goes hand in hand with that. So something antique is great no matter what your style is. It is really going to ground your space and really give it some soul.
Mm-hmm.
And a living room essential is a large enough rug. Don't have a little tiny rug. Don't have, as we joke, a little bath mat, in front of your coffee table or something like that. You want to have a rug that is big enough for the room and also big enough for possibly that conversational area that I'm talking about. So you may even want to have 2 rugs depending on the shape of your living room. Everybody's got a different living room. You got to go in there and you got to think about it and see what would work best for you. My situation, I have 3 rugs, 2 rugs that are the same. At one end, one is going horizontally. At the other end, one is on an angle, and they are joined by a faux hide. It really works. It took me a while to figure it out, but I love it. And it adds a lot of interest to the room. There are muted colors, and it just really does the trick rather than just having one gigantic, long piece of broadloom rolling out. It almost would then feel like wall-to-wall carpeting, and I didn't want that vibe. So think about the shape of your room and then figure out what the best size rug is. You'll see, maybe I could get the 7x9 because it's $120 less than the other one. Go for the bigger one. 8x10 is probably the smallest size I would consider in a living room unless you've got a super small space. So you're probably thinking something more by 11x14, something like that. You don't want to have the legs or bottom of the furniture kind of like hanging on by their toenails. You want to have at least a good portion of the furniture on the rug. And particularly if you're talking about chairs that are all leggy, and because you're going to see all the way under there, it would be best if they were all the way on the rug. Plus, if your rug has a pile, you're going to be tipping one way or the other if all the legs are not on. A sofa doesn't really happen like that because it's heavier. As long as you've got the front legs on there, you should be okay.
Well, speaking of that, I actually have a 10 by 14 in my living room, and it's just the perfect size. And I think because our furniture is not pushed against a wall, I think it's really obvious that all the legs of each chair and the sofa are all on the rug. And so when you have it kind of in the center of the room and you're walking around, I think that's when it can look odd that the front legs are on and the back legs are off. So I think that is a great size, but that can be expensive. So just we'll warn you up front that might not be the cheapest thing. But you can always go with an indoor-outdoor rug. A lot of times those are less expensive, and then maybe put a more expensive rug centered on top. So that's a way to go. My next idea is to add color to your room. And you might say, well, I have a neutral room, so I don't want color. But the thing is, even if you have a neutral room, you do need some color. And, I've seen this a lot working with clients over the years. I know you have too, Kelly, is that there's just, when there's no color in the room, when it's just gray and white and black, it can really drag the room down.
So flat.
It feels, that's the exact word that I was thinking. It feels flat. And so you do need some color. We're not saying you have to go replace all your furniture. That's not what we're saying, but we're saying add some color to the room. You can add it with artwork, pillows, throws, a rug, some accessories, some lamps. There's so many ways that you can add color to the room. And when you look at it, you're going to say, I should have done this a long time ago. Just try it if you don't believe us, and you're going to see it really does add some life to your room.
Yeah, if you're feeling like your living room is just way too neutral, you've probably got some color somewhere in your house. Even if it's a piece of fabric, wrap it around an insert and throw it in there and just see what that feels like. It doesn't have to be the color. You're just testing it. So you're listening to this episode about living room essentials, and you're thinking about your space. You're giving a lot of thought to it and deciding whether or not you want each one of these essentials or which ones are going to work for you. But I would try, if you can, try each one out and then pick 8, maybe 10. Maybe we're going to give you more than 10. So pick the ones that work for you. But color is so easy, and it's so easy just to try it and see. It's going to really change your space, particularly for all beige or all gray or something like that. Hey, my lighting tip that I love is definitely pertinent for the living room. Resources of lighting, at least. So if you've got some can lighting above, that's fine. You're going to want that on dimmers. You're going to want some table lamps. Of course, hopefully you're getting some great natural lighting. And then maybe you add another source of light somewhere. Perhaps you have a bookshelf that you could tuck a little lamp into, or you can get one of those great rechargeable little lights that are all over Instagram right now and all over the internet. So they're so easy to come by. And those are terrific. You could tuck them anywhere you want. So have resources of lighting. Maybe if you have can lights, maybe you also have a chandelier coming down. So that would count as another source. So just go in there, take count, and see where you can add. You can almost always add a table lamp somewhere, or a standing lamp if you don't have a table to sit on. A mirror. A mirror may not be something you could naturally think about putting in a living room. Think it more for bedroom or entry, or certainly in a bathroom. But I think a mirror should be in every single room. And a living room is a great place to really large mirror. More than likely, your living room is going to have windows in it, at least one window. If you can position the mirror, a good sized mirror, opposite the window, you're going to almost double the natural light you're getting, because it's going to reflect what's going on outside. And more than likely, you've got some greenery, or maybe if you're in an urban setting, you've got some cool roof lines or buildings you could look at. And then you're going to see that reflected. And then, of course, the sky and the sun, or whatever is going on with the weather, will be reflected in your mirror as well as what's going on in the room, but it really does so much. My preference would be getting a vintage mirror. So that's one that you'd want to be looking for in a thrift store or consignment store or an antique store. And that could double as your other essential of having something that is antique in the room, adding a little gravitas. So you get the mirror and the antique essential in one, a 2-for-1.
Well, it's so interesting you say that because I just did that in our bathroom. There was a mirror that I really didn't like, and the light fixture I haven't gotten to yet, but I just happened to have a gorgeous Louis Philippe mirror. I bought it from a family that was from France, and they were moving back to France. And although it had been in their family forever, well, actually the woman said that it was in her husband's family. So I don't know that the husband knows he saw. But I thought what she said was fair, though. Look, they're shipping all their things overseas. And so what she said to me was, I'm selling the things that I know I can easily replace. So, there's a ton of Louis Philippe mirrors there. But the things that they knew that were just one of a kind, those are the things that they kept. But that is what I put above my sink here. And I cannot tell you how much happier it makes me just every time I walk through there and see that just beautiful mirror from the early 1800s. And I'm so happy to have it.
I can't wait to see everything when you redo or you add all your Anita touches to your new home. I'm just seeing little piecemeal. I can't wait to see the whole store.
Oh, my last one you've already covered. So I think I've covered everything. Have you?
Well, I have no idea what number we're on, but I do have a couple more things.
Okay, go for it. Go for
No
it.
surprise. Something you collected and something personal to you. Because I think oftentimes people are hesitant to put personal items in the living room because it feels like it should be a more formal space. I think you should have something that is very personal, that means something to you. And again, we could do a twofer here. It could be the art. Maybe you have a painting of a place that you love to hike, or a flower that you love, or a person you love. Something that's personal in that room is going to really bring it alive, kind of like the color. It's going to really ramp it up. And then I love a stack of coffee table books in a living room. So useful, even if you're just using them to stack horizontally and then putting a lovely piece of decor on top of it to sort of showcase it, or great on the coffee table. Just also gives a sense of you and your family, because really you should be picking a coffee table book that sort of speaks to you. A lot of my coffee table books have a lot to do with interior design and decor, or flowers, or flower arranging, or gardening. So that tells something about what my interests are.
And I love books, and I finally have a pretty big bookcase upstairs with all my books all in one place. And actually, I really love that. And I'm able to find everything very easily. It's all down low. It doesn't require a ladder. So it's been great.
Awesome. Well, this was so much fun. What are we defining today?
We're defining the difference between china, porcelain, and bone china.
Ooh, good info.
Well, I've always wondered about some of these, and from my research, I have found that china and porcelain are exactly the same thing. The name china comes from where it is from, which is from China, and they originated the making of china. And the word porcelain comes from the Latin word porcella, which means seashell. So that means smooth and white like a seashell. So those are the same, but there is a third thing called bone china. And that is stronger because it's made by adding bone ash, ground up bone ash from farm animals. I'm sorry. Now this is the way it's been made for a long time, to wet kaolin clay. But since the 1990s, they have been using hydroxyapatite compounds, which are from rocks, rather than bones, to make bone china. So if yours has been made recently, it probably does not have bone in it. But that is what that is. And I know one of the tests to tell if something is bone china is to hold it up to a window and run your hand behind it. If you see your hand through the plate, it is bone china. If you can't, it is not. Because bone china tends to be very strong, and so they make it very thin. So if you see a plate that's very delicate, it's probably bone china.
Well, I know what I'm going to be doing this afternoon.
Now you have your activity.
I'm not sure I want to be eating off things with little cow parts in it, but
Well,
I'm gonna check. I'm definitely gonna check.
Yeah. Well, and of course, then there's pottery too. If it's really chunky, it's probably pottery, which is made from clay.
Yeah.
So I didn't mention that one, but yeah. So that is interesting. So okay, what is your crush for today?
Well, if you find yourself with 32 plus hours on hand,
Yes.
you could tune into Middlemarch on Audible. If you're an Audible member, it is free with your membership. And I loved it. I'm sure I read Middlemarch or was supposed to read Middlemarch during my English major days in college.
Were you an English major?
English and communication.
Really? Well, no wonder you're so good at communicating.
Yeah.
AKA talking.
There you go. I know what you meant. Middlemarch, narrated by Maureen O'Brien. She does a wonderful job. And of course, Middlemarch is written by, air quotes, George Eliot, AKA Marianne Evans.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely loved it. So if you also have an Audible membership and listening, there are many great classic titles that are available to you. And I found so many of them to be great.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. But I listen to all these audiobooks through an app that connects with my local library. There's an extensive library of audiobooks available. Just try going through your local library if you don't have Audible and see if there isn't some option for you, because I have listened to just hundreds of audiobooks free from my library.
Yeah, that's so great. You mentioned that before, and I've never picked up on that. I should really do that. Do you remember what the name of the app is?
Well, I've forgotten it, mainly because that particular app I don't think they use anymore. Now I am actually using the Libby app, so I'll have to look and see if that one includes audio. But they'll have digital books so you can read it on your phone, and they'll also have audiobooks, and they're kind of two separate sections there. I'll have to look up and see, because I haven't been listening to audiobooks lately. I've been looking at their magazines, remember, through the Libby app?
Yes,
I talked about that.
You told us that.
So I will check into that and report back. But I'm going to check and see, because I've been wanting to read that book myself again.
So what's your crush?
My crush is a set of battery-operated heated gloves. And these aren't for everyone. I kind of run hot, so I don't need these. These would probably make me feel like I'm burning up hot all the time. But for other people, if you know somebody who has cold hands in the winter and they just never can quite warm up all the time, these are fabulous. Both people that I gave these to have raved about how it has kept them warm, and their fingers didn't freeze up. And it's got, I think, 3 different settings. And depending on the setting, that determines how long they go in between charges. But I know it got several people that I love through some pretty cold days here recently. So I will include a link to that, and you just charge them up.
Fantastic. Well, my hands are always cold. I'm going to check that out. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. And remember, we are here to inspire you to create a beautiful home. Until next time. Want to talk to us? Well, we really want to talk to you. So let's schedule a design consult. Anita and I are here to give you individualized, actionable advice on how to create the beautiful home you want and deserve. It's so easy to schedule a design consult with us. Simply click the link in the show notes or head to decoratingtipsandtricks.com/consult. When we talk to you on the scheduled time, we will be ready with so many great tips, advice, and yes, tricks. So sign up today for a design consult. We can't wait to talk to you.